Have you ever paused mid-scroll, maybe seen some online trend sweeping across your feed and thought, okay, where does this actually come from? And what are the real consequences?
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes these digital currents are harmless fun, right? A fleeting dance craze or
Yeah,
something.
yeah.
But what happens when they take a really sinister turn, when they spiral into genuine danger and, well, real world harm?
That's the crucial question.
So today we're embarking on what I think is a really crucial deep dive into one of the most chilling online phenomena we've ever encountered, the blue whale challenge.
It's definitely up there.
Our mission here is to dissect its dark origins, try to unravel its meticulously crafted structure, expose the frankly profound psychological manipulation it uses, and confront its undeniable tragic impact.
Yeah.
Consider this your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. We hope to pack it with surprising insights, those aha moments, all without feeling overwhelmed by just a flood of information.
That's a perfect setup. And, when the Blue Whale Challenge first surfaced, there was indeed a lot of initial skepticism. Many people were quick to dismiss it.
Like just an urban legend.
Exactly. Nothing more than an urban legend, a bizarre hoax circulating in the darker corners of the internet. But as we've seen over the years, the real-world consequences have proven to be incredibly chilling. They really demand our urgent and, frankly, persistent attention.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So where and when did the sinister trend first emerge? What do our sources tell us about its murky beginnings?
Well, the report suggests it first appeared in Russia. The timeline seems to be around 2015 to 2016,
Okay.
and it's largely attributed to a former psychology student named Philip Budikin. Disturbingly, he actually confessed to creating it with a chillingly specific purpose.
Which was?
He claimed it was meant to cleanse society, his words, by identifying and preying on individuals he deemed biological waste, people he saw as vulnerable or, in his view, lacking value. It's horrific.
Wow.
Uh,
That's deeply unsettling. And the name itself, Blue Whale Challenge. I understand there's some grim symbolism there.
It does, yeah. The name is a direct, dark metaphor. It references the natural phenomenon of whales sometimes beaching themselves, which, leads to their own demise.
Grim.
Very. And the challenge, it initially gained its disturbing notoriety through Russian social media platforms, particularly VKontakte Day, that's a big social network over there.
Right.
But it certainly didn't stay confined to Russia. Its spread was rapid. Global, really. Amplified via platforms like Instagram, WhatsApp, various other messaging apps.
So it jumped platforms pretty quickly.
Oh, absolutely. By 2017, we started seeing verified reports of its presence surfacing in countries all across the globe.
Yeah.
Places like India, Brazil, Argentina, even here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
It truly became a global concern.
So how does it actually ensnare participants? This isn't just some viral public post you stumble upon, right? Our sources indicate it operates through a highly secretive and insidious network.
Precisely. That's key. This challenge functions through a clandestine network of individuals. They're referred to as curators or sometimes administrators.
Okay.
These aren't public figures. They actively seek out and contact participants, often vulnerable teens, through private messages on various social media or messaging platforms. It's a very targeted one-on-one approach.
Designed to avoid detection, I guess.
Exactly.
Oof, look.
Avoid public detection and also to foster this kind of sense of secret intimacy with the victim.
And once they establish that contact, what happens, our understanding is it's a terrifyingly structured progression, like step by step.
It is. Very structured.
Huh.
Once a curator establishes that rapport and the participant is sort of hooked, they initiate a 50-day program. 50 days of escalating tasks.
50.
50. And the structure is meticulously designed to break down a person's resistance and ultimately their self-preservation instincts. So in the initial phase, let's say roughly days 1 through 10, the tasks are deceptively harmless, almost playful even.
Like what?
Participants might be told to draw a whale, maybe listen to specific, often melancholic music, or simply stay awake late at night. The purpose here is pure grooming.
Grooming.
Yeah, building trust, establishing a sense of compliance, making the participant feel committed to this game as they see it. It's about creating a bond and a habit of following instructions, however simple they seem at first.
So they start with these easy, seemingly benign requests,
Okay.
but then it clearly takes a much darker turn. What comes next in this chilling progression?
Right. Then, as the challenge progresses, typically around days 11 to 30, the tasks begin to introduce discomfort and, crucially, mild self-harm.
Okay, here we go.
Participants might be instructed to, say, stand in the freezing cold for extended periods or watch disturbing, violent videos late at night. They might also be asked to engage in minor self-harm, like scratching themselves with a razor or a pin.
Why? What's the goal there?
The insidious goal here is desensitization, slowly eroding the participants' boundaries, normalizing risky behavior, and testing their obedience. It's a gradual push towards greater control by the curator. And as you move further in, days 31 through 49, that's when the challenge escalates dramatically. We're talking severe self-harm and deliberate isolation.
How severe?
Participants are given instructions to cut specific phrases or symbols into their skin, stand on dangerous heights like rooftops or bridges, or engage in other forms of extreme self-mutilation.
Oh my God.
Critically, during this phase, curators also demand that participants cut off communication with friends and family, isolate themselves completely from their support networks.
Right. Cutting them off?
This is designed to break down their will, amplify feelings of despair, and ensure their sole source of interaction, their sole source of validation, becomes the curator themselves.
Total dependency.
Exactly. And then, on day 50, what final horrifying instruction awaits them on that dreaded threshold? On day 50, after weeks of this intense psychological conditioning and physical self-mutilation, the final task is often described as an instruction to take your life.
Just explicitly.
Often, yes.
Yeah.
This typically involves jumping from a high place, like a building or a bridge, or sometimes other means that result in fatal outcomes. It is the culmination of this escalating series of commands, a final, horrifying act of submission.
It's vital to emphasize here, while those early reports might have suggested this was largely a hoax, the escalating nature of these tasks, the pattern, and the sheer number of documented cases, it truly confirms its devastating real-world impact. We're talking about actual tragedies here.
Absolutely. And what's truly fascinating in a deeply disturbing way is the profound psychological manipulation at play. It's not just about simple tasks. It's about a systematic stripping away of a person's autonomy, their sense of reality.
How do they do that? What are the tactics?
Curators employ several core tactics. First, there's that grooming we talked about, building initial rapport through those easy early tasks, making participants feel uniquely chosen, maybe even special. That initial connection makes them increasingly committed.
That initial sense of belonging must be a powerful draw, especially for vulnerable teens.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
And then comes coercion. This is incredibly insidious. If participants express even a hint of wanting to quit,
What happens?
the curators immediately retaliate. They threaten to expose personal information, maybe sensitive photos they've been tricked into sending, or even threaten to harm the participants' family members. That fear becomes an incredibly powerful, almost paralyzing motivator. It keeps them trapped within the challenge, making escape seem utterly impossible.
Terrifying.
Then, third and equally critical, they enforce isolation. Curators actively encourage, sometimes demand, that participants cut themselves off from their social support systems, friends, family, trusted adults, anyone who might help. This just amplifies feelings of loneliness and despair. It dramatically increases their dependency on the curator, who becomes their sole confidant, their only source of understanding.
They position themselves as the only one who gets it.
Precisely. And finally, perhaps most cruelly, is the direct exploitation of vulnerability. Curators don't just stumble upon teens with existing mental health issues, low self-esteem, or feelings of loneliness. They meticulously identify them, often through their social media activity, and then amplify these struggles.
How so?
Imagine a teen posting online about feeling invisible or misunderstood. The curator swoops in, responds with tailored attention, makes them feel seen for the first time. They transform that deepest pain into the very hook that binds them to the challenge.
Wow. Here's where it gets really interesting for me. Why are adolescents uniquely susceptible to something like this? It seems to prey on them in such a specific way.
Yes, psychologists have offered some profound insights into this. The challenge masterfully exploits key aspects of adolescent brain development.
Like what specifically?
Well, the prefrontal cortex. That's the part of the brain responsible for executive functions, like decision-making, impulse control, understanding long-term consequences. It's still underdeveloped in teenagers.
Still cooking, basically.
Right, still under construction. This means they are inherently more prone to making impulsive decisions, seeking immediate gratification, and they're highly influenced by peer approval and that intense need for belonging.
Mm.
So when you couple that developmental vulnerability with the challenge's gamified structure, where completing tasks, even self-harm, can give this perverse sense of accomplishment, it creates a powerful psychological hook.
Like leveling up in a very dark game.
Exactly. And when sharing those completions on social media provides a twisted form of validation, it further reinforces the cycle, then The fear of those severe consequences, the exposure, the threats to family that becomes an almost unbreakable barrier, preventing them from withdrawing once they're caught in the web.
It's terrifying to consider how that psychological web could just completely ensnare someone. Let's connect that deep manipulation now to the tangible, devastating risks and, tragically, the outcomes we've seen. What are some of the documented risks for those who get caught up in this?
The documented risks are indeed severe. They span both physical and psychological dimensions. Firstly, there's significant physical harm.
From the tasks themselves.
Yes, the self-harm tasks, cutting, burning, scratching symbols into their skin, these are not just superficial injuries. They can lead to severe infections, permanent scarring, and tragically even accidental death from excessive blood loss if something goes wrong. These aren't minor injuries. They carry severe health consequences.
And the psychological side.
Oh, profound psychological trauma. Participants often experience intense, debilitating anxiety, deep depression, severe paranoia, which is only exacerbated by the enforced isolation and the constant coercive threats from the curators. This leaves lasting emotional scars, scars that often require extensive therapeutic intervention long after, if they get out.
And sadly, we know there have been fatal outcomes linked to this challenge. It's not just a threat of harm, but actual loss of life.
Yes, tragically, lives have been lost. While the exact numbers are debated because reporting is inconsistent across different regions, and because of the secretive nature of the challenge itself,
Yeah.
globally, over 100 deaths have been linked to the blue whale challenge since around 2016. We've seen concrete, heartbreaking examples.
Can you share some?
Yeah, like in Argentina in 2017, a 14-year-old girl died by suicide. Authorities found clear evidence of self-harm linked directly to curator instructions on her device.
Awful.
Also in 2017 in Brazil, a 16-year-old boy took his life. Again, authorities discovered direct blue whale-related messages on his phone detailing the escalating tasks he was given. And in India, between 2017 and 2018, multiple teen suicides were tragically investigated for connections. This prompted widespread government warnings and public health campaigns there. These aren't just statistics. They represent families completely shattered by this insidious manipulation.
And this isn't just some grim historical footnote from a few years ago, right? We're in 2025 now, and our sources suggest the challenge persists, maybe in isolated pockets, often morphing under different names or operating through copycat groups.
That's right.
We've seen warnings, even recent posts on X, highlighting its presence in places like South America and Southeast Asia. So it's still out there, lurking in the digital shadows.
That's a crucial point that cannot be overstated. Its continued spread, even if it's less visible now, is fueled by the very same things. That allure of mystery, coupled with powerful peer influence and, crucially, the anonymity that many social media and especially encrypted messaging platforms provide for these malicious curators.
It makes it harder to track.
Much harder. So despite it being less prevalent now than perhaps at its peak, mental health advocates continue to emphasize its ongoing threat to vulnerable youth. The challenge is adept at evolving, adapting its presentation to evade detection. This makes it incredibly difficult to quantify its current impact, but the danger to susceptible young people remains very real and requires constant vigilance.
So let's revisit why teens are so particularly vulnerable to these kinds of challenges. Beyond the underdeveloped prefrontal cortex we discussed, what other factors play into making them such prime targets?
Well, beyond the physiological aspect, teens' brains are biologically wired to prioritize reward-seeking and peer approval. This makes them highly susceptible to these gamified challenges that promise a sense of belonging, maybe a unique identity, or even a twisted form of significance.
That need to fit in or stand out.
Exactly. They're also at a developmental stage where they're grappling intensely with identity, self-esteem, social acceptance. Now, layer existing mental health vulnerabilities onto this mix like diagnosed depression, anxiety, or even undiagnosed suicidal ideation, they become incredibly susceptible.
And mental health is a huge factor.
Huge. A STAR 2023 study found that a staggering 13% of U.S. teens reported suicidal thoughts. That unfortunately significantly amplifies the pool of at-risk individuals who could be targeted by these challenges.
13%, wow. And social media itself, its structure, the algorithms. Surely that plays a huge enabling part in this, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The very dynamics of social media are key enablers here. Algorithms, which are designed primarily to promote engaging or popular content, can inadvertently expose vulnerable users to challenge-related posts, even if they aren't explicitly searching for them.
Right, it just pops up.
Exactly. And private messaging apps, offering that cloak of anonymity and encrypted communications, provide an ideal environment for curators to operate largely undetected by official monitoring systems. Plus, you have to consider the lingering effects of, say, pandemic-era isolation, coupled with dramatically increased screen time.
Mm-hmm.
That's only heightened many teens' reliance on online interactions for connection, creating these emotional and social gaps that these malicious curators are just all too eager to exploit. They fill that void with their dangerous narratives.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, then, it becomes clear that authorities and platforms face these immense ongoing challenges in combating this decentralized and evolving phenomenon. What steps have they actually tried to take?
Well, there have been a variety of responses, and they've evolved as the threat itself does. On the government side, you had Russia, back in 2017, famously arresting Philip Budeikin. He was later sentenced to 3 years for inciting suicide. That was a landmark case.
Right.
India moved quickly to ban the challenge in 2017. Brazil issued widespread public warnings. Fast forward to 2025, and governments are trying to monitor encrypted platforms and dark web forums for this kind of activity. But enforcement against these shadowy, globally dispersed groups remains incredibly difficult. It's like playing a digital game of whack-a-mole.
You shut one down, another pops up.
Exactly. And what about the social media giants themselves? How have platforms like Instagram or WhatsApp responded to such a grave threat appearing on their services? Platform responses have included significant increases in their monitoring for self-harm content. Instagram and WhatsApp, for instance, have invested heavily in using AI to flag keywords like blue whale or other suspicious phrases.
AI moderation.
Yes. Even platforms like TikTok, though maybe not a primary vector for this specific challenge, they actively redirect searches for concerning terms to mental health resources and crisis hotlines, which is good.
That's helpful.
It is. However, the critical challenge remains. Curators very effectively use private groups or direct one-on-one messages. These consistently evade detection by many automated systems, creating this hidden, dangerous space where the grooming happens.
So what does this all mean for us? For parents, caregivers, just members of society, our role in prevention seems absolutely crucial here.
It truly is. Prevention absolutely demands a multifaceted approach. It has to start at the foundational level within the family. For parents, education is paramount. You must be able to recognize the potential warning signs.
Like, what should people look for?
Things like unexplained cuts or bruises, a sudden withdrawal from friends or usual activities, significant changes in sleep patterns, or very secretive phone use, especially late at night. It's vital to have open, non-judgmental discussions about social media risks. Make it clear that seemingly harmless games can, in fact, be deeply manipulative and dangerous. And beyond just talking, consider monitoring tools. Now, apps like Bark or Custodio, they aren't about spying. They're about establishing a critical safety net. Think of them as an early warning system.
How do they work?
They can detect concerning keywords, maybe harmful images, or patterns of behavior that suggest risk, allowing parents to step in before a situation escalates from, say, a harmless curiosity into something deeply dangerous. Regular, honest check-ins about social media use also help build trust. You want to create an environment where a teen feels comfortable coming to you with concerns rather than hiding them out of fear or shame.
That open communication channel is key. And beyond the home, what broader societal efforts are vital in this fight?
Yeah, beyond the home, mental health support is paramount. We absolutely must encourage teens to openly seek help for emotional struggles without stigma. Schools can play a monumental role here.
Oh.
By offering accessible counseling services, yes, but also by integrating digital literacy workshops into the curriculum. Teaching students not just how to use technology, but critically, how to identify and resist manipulative content and dangerous online dynamics.
Digital citizenship, basically.
Exactly. Then there's platform accountability. That's non-negotiable. Social media companies must constantly enhance their AI moderation, particularly focusing on detecting activity in private groups. And they need to collaborate more closely with mental health experts to provide immediate, useful in-app warnings and resources. Finally, community awareness is vital. Influencers, educators, community leaders, they should actively promote positive challenges, things like fitness or creative trends, to effectively counter the allure of harmful ones. Steer young people towards healthier, more constructive online engagement. You know, the Blue Whale Challenge really stands as this stark, enduring example of social media's profound potential to amplify harm. It shares these unsettling traits with other dangerous, often viral online trends we've witnessed, like the Blackout Challenge, remember that? It similarly exploits teen vulnerability and their developmental need for sensation and belonging. Its persistence in 2025, even if it's less visibly rampant, just highlights the undeniable need for ongoing vigilance and a constantly evolving defensive strategy.
And it absolutely underscores the ethical responsibility of these platforms, doesn't it? To prioritize user safety over sheer engagement metrics. And also the critical role of media, like us, in avoiding sensationalism that could inadvertently inspire copycats. We've definitely seen that negative feedback loop happen before.
Absolutely. Public health campaigns, for their part, must strike this delicate balance.
Okay.
You need to raise awareness of the dangers, but exercise caution to avoid inadvertently glamorizing or popularizing the challenge itself. And the continuing rise of encrypted platforms in 2025, which offer anonymity to perpetrators, well, that necessitates new strategies.
Like what?
Things like enhanced international cooperation to track curators across borders, and critically robust legislative measures to hold platforms genuinely accountable for the harmful content shared on their services, even in private spaces.
The blue whale challenge remains this haunting reminder of social media's darker side. A chilling testament to how calculated manipulation can exploit vulnerable youth, escalating self-harm to the tragic point of suicide over that chilling 50-day progression. And while its origins might have elements that were initially dismissed as a hoax, the real tragedies, like the deaths of those teens in South America, India, Brazil, and others globally, they prove its lethal impact.
And in 2025, its presence lingers, often in copycat forms, exploiting the very same psychological vulnerabilities that fuel other dangerous online trends. Combating it effectively requires collective, sustained action. From parents who are actively engaged, from platforms that are truly accountable, and from a society that prioritizes mental health support and digital literacy for its young people. We just need to foster open communication, educate proactively, and consistently prioritize mental well-being for our youth.
So the big question remains, how can we collectively ensure social media truly becomes a space for genuine connection and positive support, rather than a conduit for dangerous manipulation and destruction? Especially as new online trends continue to emerge at what feels like an accelerating pace. It's definitely a question we all need to keep asking ourselves and actively working towards. And if you're looking for more insightful information like this deep dive today, be sure to visit Mind Expansion Daily.